Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Caper Sarah Cody, and we're keeping it geekly with our good friend Richard Fairgray. We're here to break down 4-color heroes and everything in between. Richard, welcome to the show. How have you been, man?
You know, it's been so long since I've been on your show. It's just really great to be back. I'm a 5-timer now, right? It's
been a lot. You might actually be the #1 contender right now.
That's all that matters to me, honestly. And the reason I keep making comics.
The only reason. I was gonna say, you are a machine. You pump out this is your 4th, 5th book this year?
This will be my 7th. Hang on.
Wow.
Shed, Ghost, Octopus, Too Hot for Octopus, Haunted Hill, Volume 1, Pencil
Too Hot
First,
for Octopus.
Something else. No, yeah, this is number 7. This will be number 7 this year.
So 4-color heroes. This was such an interesting read. I read about a third, half of it. And this is, a young age graphic novel. It's one of your first books in colors compared to the rest. I mean, a lot of the books you pumped out this year were mostly black and white with just splashes of colors here and there.
Yeah, I mean, everything so far this year. No, Shed was full color, but a very limited palette.
Yeah.
And then, everything else this year has been not black and white, but grayscale done with markers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing all my coloring by hand now because I'm running further and further away from computers the older I get. But yeah, this one was traditional. This was modern digital coloring at its most extreme for me.
And it was nice to see you working with color on levels of this nature. We'll kind of dive into that later on in the interview. But I mean, it felt like a lot of these interiors had just 4-color palettes, or there was things on bookshelves or in a comic or something that had 4 colors. And I don't know if that was intentional, but I loved how you kind of kept that theme. Even if it wasn't unintentional. What does 4-color heroes mean? What is the meaning of that?
So it's just an old term for referring to superheroes, because the old comic printing process was a 4-color printing process, and so they in the Silver Age, a lot of people referred to comic books as the 4-color hero books.
Oh, that is interesting. I actually never knew that. So that the big topic of this book, we have Oscar and Patrick. They it feels like 2 unlikely friends. One is a Christian who goes with his mom. The other one is Dennis the Menace, if you will. And the way that friendship,
he's a real little stinker.
The way that friendship forms, it feels it's just such a genuine connection. And they come together through the love of comics. And we were talking backstage, but I want to put it out on the air. This really feels like a comicception of a comic, like a comic within a comic. And one of the most I can't praise you enough on just how you really push it to the limits, but you literally put a comic in this. We have one character reciting the tales of a comic, and then you illustrated that into a Silver Age type of interior, and it was insane to see you pumping that level of workout. I mean, you're legally blind. You got 3% vision in one eye. And it was just super detailed. And I've always thought you were a capable artist, but to see you do Silver Age work when it's mostly been surrealism or, quote unquote, what you said, just sloppy. But it was wild. I mean, what kind of inspired you to do this?
Well, I've had this idea for almost a decade now, and I never made it before because I genuinely felt like I couldn't. There were points where I had sort of thought about, what if I did this book where I would draw the real life stuff and then have other artists come in and do the comic stuff, and have 7 or 8 different artists come in. And when I say comic stuff, to explain to the viewers, Oscar and Patrick are kind of thrown together because Oscar is from a deeply religious background. He's been homeschooled, and on his first day of school, he is staying inside during the lunch period because his mother has told him, stay away from the other kids. They might be a bad influence. And Patrick is in the classroom as well because he's there on a detention because he has done some bad shit. And they kind of keep being thrown together like this. Patrick's reading this comic and Oscar can't stop looking at it, but he knows he's not allowed to read it. And then Patrick says, well, here's a loophole. I can tell you about it. And so throughout the book, you never actually see the real comic books. You only ever see how Oscar imagines them based on what Patrick's telling him. So that there's like this innocence to them and a constant misunderstanding of them through this like lens of a homeschooled religious kid. And as the story goes on, it sort of develops. So my original idea was like, maybe I'll get like, I don't know, someone who does like a very cartoony style, like a Scotty Young type vibe to do the first one. And then by the end of it, have like Bill Sienkiewicz do the last one, you know? And I'm not saying these are the people who I could get, but I'm saying like that kind of spectrum of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would do the real life stuff. And then just at some point a couple of years ago, I thought, oh, fuck it. I think I'm ready to do this. And like, I wanted to stop doing digital coloring. I wanted to move away from traditional comic books that, you know, I'd been doing a lot of like all ages stuff. And I thought this would be like a really nice cap on that part of my career. And when I first pitched it to Fanbase Press, Barbara, the editor there, is a big fan of Haunted Hill, and she had said, like, do it in the Haunted Hill style and kind of just play around with it a little bit, like color digitally, but that kind of cartoony style you usually do, or that I was doing at the time. And I started it, and I got like, I think 9 pages in doing it like that, and I looked at it and I thought, this is not servicing this story well, because it's a fun story, it's a sweet story, but it's not a light story.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this needs to feel grounded. And so I started the book over. I had told them it would take me 2.5 months. And they were like, that's insane. You don't need, like, you have the whole year to get this to us.
You're like, that's too much time.
Yeah. And so I looked at it, I was like, well, I had, like, this is 2022 where I had signed on for too many things. I had 988 pages that I was obliged under contract to write, to draw, a color and letter and deliver to publishers. And I decided, 9 pages in, what if I started this from scratch and did it as the most detailed book I've ever done? What if I spent days doing like research online, going into like the book is set in New Zealand in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like diving deep into Google Maps and like dialing back the street view as far as I could go to see like which store was in that spot on which street, where is the bus stop that they get off, like what did the art, you know, like what color was the house painted, like, and I kind of knew, I grew up in New Zealand. It's a neighborhood that I spent a lot of time in my like late teens and early 20s. I know the area, and I had these houses in mind that I wanted to use in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to like go and find those houses and get the images of those houses. I'd be like, I'm going to get the windows right. I'm going to get I'm going to color sample from the paint, but not the paint now, the paint from what it looked like in as far back as Google Maps will let me go. And I'm going to have like, make sure the trees are right. Make sure, I mean, the pattern on the bus seats had to be right, because I'm not usually a person who cares a lot about accuracy, but because I was going to have these like wild flights of fancy with the superhero parts, I really wanted the real life to feel as grounded as humanly possible.
So, I mean, speaking of the amount of different research you put into this and just how much work in general, I mean, a lot of this kind of felt personal. I mean, Patrick felt like a miniature Richard. Like, I kept just picturing you every time this kid would say something just off the walls. Like, is there any correlation at all?
Not really. I think Patrick is the like the Bart Simpson that I wish that I had been. I was an awkward, weird kid. I was never like shockingly, I was like, I was a fat kid who couldn't afford to be a goth. And there is one joke in there where Patrick gets described as too poor to be goth. That's really the most me he is. But a lot of the time, like, I was a very good kid who did very bad things, because a lot of like teenagers, like there's the old trope of like, oh, they're doing it for attention. When I did bad stuff, it was because I wanted to do bad stuff and I wanted to get away with it. I never tried to get attention for like shoplifting or sneaking out or drugs or drinking, whatever. It was all like, no, this is shit you keep secret so you can continue doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas Patrick is very much like, yeah, I called my teacher a piece of shit. I got in trouble for it. I don't know how that happened.
So another interesting thing was Oscar. I felt his character and his development within this it felt really deep. I mean, what inspired you to kind of go more towards the religious route? I know religion and, just being gay, that's two conflicting things right there. But I mean, it felt like you dove really deep into the different aspects of even how, Oscar might not necessarily believe what he's learning. He's just following along with his mom, just like Patrick was with his brother.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to show, I'm not religious. I've never been religious. I've had a lot of religious friends in my life, especially when I was a teenager, because, there's a huge crossover with weirdo unpopular kids and the religious kids, especially where I grew up. And watching the development from like 13 to 15, where a lot of kids who have been raised in religious homes start to question that stuff. So while that's not my own experience, like I've seen so many people go through it that I felt like I could really capture that. When I first had the idea for this, it was right when the Westboro Baptist Church were kind of at their like height of fame, and originally this was going to be based in America and loosely based on a sort of a parody of that. And I realized like there's no way to write that story that'll feel personal and connected. I know New Zealand, I know the culture, and I also know what the very damaging church is in New Zealand and how to and like what it looks like when people are a member of that church. So it became like far more connected in that way. And the truth is, like, this kind of shitty oppressive religion is everywhere, and there's no need to like pin the flag to the one that everyone already is making fun of, especially since it's sort of collapsed since. But I wanted to show that I didn't want it to also be a book where I'm just making fun of religion. I don't want to say like people who have faith are like big dumb idiots. I will have Patrick say that. Because Patrick is a 15-year-old boy who gets to have like unformed opinions that are reactionary. Yeah. And I wanted to show this through the lens of Oscar, through the lens of Patrick more than through the lens of Oscar, because I wanted to show like I knew that I couldn't write this from the good kids side, big air quotes there, because it wasn't me. But I wanted to show like the kind of toxic shit that this boy is dealing with in his home and from the religious forces is the same kind of toxic shit that Patrick is dealing with, from a completely opposite. Like it's just a different form of toxic masculinity that is making him have to fit into a certain path. And I think I found a pretty good balance there. Sorry if that is this book, like it's always trying to dance this line of like showing that both sides, like there's bad everywhere and there are good people within it, I guess.
And we find that across everything, even like with like politics and shit. Most people just follow the flock because they identify with something within it. Not necessarily realizing the damages that they're signing up for, or potentially the harm they're causing their family. And it's unique when you sit back and just kind of watch it unfold. And I just really loved how you were able to take your spin with the religion side of it, because at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff preaches hate.
It does, and like. I want to be really clear. Like these characters both break free of that. I think that, like they are the good.
I think the cover shows us that.
But like they find safety away from their worlds. They are children in the story. They do not have the agency to really flee. To really break out. So while there are comparisons to political, like different points on the political spectrum and what have you, and people identifying with certain parts and not others. The truth is, if you are following something that has bad shit in it, you are still doing a bad thing. You are still endorsing a bad thing by doing that. I don't want to seem like I'm coming down in the middle and saying.
And I wasn't trying to implicate that either. I was just, the herd mentality. I guess is what I
said. I'd almost said the words "there are good people on both sides," which is not my opinion at all.
And I more or less was kind of just directing it towards just like the herd mentality, where a lot of people just don't research enough or study. They just see their friends doing it, and they're like, "Oh, cool. I'll don this hat too. Fuck it." You really go ahead
with Patrick especially. Like I like in the book they never say that. I think the word gay is said once, and it's Patrick's brother says that Jesus made him gay.
Mhm.
But and it's I think kind of the funniest scene in the book, honestly. But like Oscar never even has the language around what is happening. Like he is realizing something because he's never considered it.
Yeah.
I think the way I wrote Patrick was he is not a closeted kid. He is a kid that I think everyone knows he is gay. He behaves in like he fits into some stereotypes because it's very easy to do that when you're young because it's easy to have a language to hold on to. But I think it's that thing that a lot of people go through where you can be the gay kid in your friend group as long as you never directly say it. Everyone can know you're the gay kid. They can refer to you as the gay kid, but as soon as you kiss a boy, that crosses a line.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can do it, just don't ever act on it. And I wanted to write him from that position so that it wasn't like he was absolutely being like he was allowed to be who he was as long as he wasn't too much of who he was, which is not I don't want to say it's just as oppressive, but it's also very bad. And I think it's something that I saw a lot growing up and something I saw a lot around the time this book is set.
So, I mean, you took a break from writing children's books. How does it feel to come back to a younger audience again?
I think this is older than most of the stuff that I was doing. You know, Black Sand Beach and Blastosaurus are very like, I think all ages can enjoy them, but they are appropriate for an 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything in this book that an 8-year-old would be damaged by, but I also don't think an 8-year-old would enjoy this.
Yeah.
I think this is a book for teenagers. I feel like this is me just saying like, look, I can kind of play in any space. This is honestly like as a final nail in the coffin of my all ages career, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm putting out things like Haunted Hill and Octopus, like this is me saying, okay, I want to be very clear. I am leaving on my own terms, and I'm leaving because I have done it. I can make this book, and like that was the tipping point for me, is realizing like I am now experienced enough in comics that I know how to make this book that I've been thinking about for a decade.
So, and I think you killed it, man. Reading it, like it just, your work always seems to, how are you able to just like break these barriers and these different, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like the way you're able to, like just some of the interiors you were showing the other day where you had like, I think it was wine glasses and it was such an interesting concept. Like, how are you always able to just push yourself like that?
I'm just so afraid of being bored. Like everything for me is, you know, I've said this a lot, and I think I've gotten some heat for it, honestly. Like, you remember when people were all talking, like a lot of writers get very self-righteous and say things
Mm-hmm.
like, I would never put more than 5 panels on a comic page because I respect my artist. And I, as a writer and artist, look at that and go, I cannot imagine how bored I would be if I got a script where every page was 5 panels.
Mm-hmm.
I look at a page. I'm working on a page right now. I just finished penciling it before we jumped on this call. That is, it's 14 panels, and 3 of them are huge panels that show this very sparse, very fancy apartment with big glass, like full glass walls looking out across the city. They're very spare. And then there are 11 tiny panels down the side of Victoria pulling a needle through her skin and then playing with it with her fingers and eventually puncturing through the back of one of her fingers with it. Yeah, it's gonna be a sexy book. And you know, like that was me looking at what I had in my script notes, which was like, these are the 3 panels where things have to be said. This is what matters. And then I think, how can I show a deeply personal moment? How can I show what someone is fiddling with to keep, you know, because this is about character. And so every page I look at, I think, how can I make this more interesting? The page you were talking about the other day was like, I've got 2 people sitting at a bar for, I think 11 pages of an issue. Like, that's really boring if you don't, like, not even to read. Like, I can keep the reader engaged with the dialogue, but I need to keep myself engaged, because it'll probably take me 2 hours to ink this 14 panel page. It'll take me 9 hours if I'd just done the 3 panels, because I would look at it and be like, I don't care. Yeah, that'll get done soon. I guess I can pick my pen up. So yeah, it's the fight to not be bored. And I think 4 Color Heroes, like I did I think I didn't have a day off during it at all. I went 7 months where I literally put in 18 hours or more per day.
Holy crap. Holy crap.
While I was drawing it, I was watching, I had playing in the background on a loop this like 29 hours playlist of like how to color videos, because I know how to do digital coloring, but I've never done superhero stuff. So I wanted to like really get it into my brain, every single detail of every different technique that other people are using for like glowing swords and ray guns and how to do the musculature and all of these things. And I'm not going to say that I think it's the part of the book that I struggle with the most, honestly, but like I think I did a serviceable job. But I wanted to, I didn't listen to any podcasts. I didn't watch any TV shows. I just had this loop going so that when I finished drawing the book, I could be like, now into coloring, and I have heard it 1,000 times. So even if I don't know what it looks like to do it, I can remember these are the, like someone said to me the other day, like, how do you do a color hold? And I was like, oh, a color hold's really easy. You just select your inks layer, and then you select all, copy, create a new layer, fill it with black, hit Q, paste, hit Q again, Command X, deselect, and then hit the /, and then and I'm like, that's not an easy thing to know. That's just like a thing that I have in the back of my head, and like it's not even the method I use for doing color holds. It's just in my head now because I've heard this one YouTube video say it 9,000 times to me.
I love it. So Richard, we do have to start tying things up. I'm curious, what does comics mean for you?
Comics are a completely free space to create any possible thing. It's a medium that can tell any story, and it's a medium, as I've said before, where you can control time in a different way than anywhere else. Movies always take the same amount of time to watch. Every page you read takes about the same amount of time as another page in a novel. In a comic, you can control how someone experiences it by putting in more or less of and different sizes, and I think that is absolutely magical.
I love that answer. I was just curious because you had a really good foreword in the beginning of your book, and I was curious on your thoughts as well. So Richard, you've been on the show 5 times now.
By the way, I should say the book has a foreword by David Booher, of CANTO and many other things fame, an incredibly talented writer who I'm very lucky to know. And also it has essays in the back, one by me that's kind of a little bit of an angry rant about like how you survive as a gay kid in the early 2000s by always always identifying someone else to highlight. And also an essay about like the importance of queer representation from Drea Letamendi, who's a psychologist who's an expert in media and pop culture.
I love it. I'll have to check those essays out as soon as I finish up reading it. I mean, I'm halfway through, and halfway, I mean, it was just a remarkable read. I can't wait to see how it ends. I know you said you're not big on endings, but every ending of your book always just is phenomenal. I can't wait to see how this one lands. So you've been on the show multiple times. You know the drill. We always love asking for a little bit of advice. So for anyone out there looking to improve their skills and looking to do maybe a different art style, you did Silver Age for what sounds like one of the very first times in this. What would be your biggest piece of advice to kind of help them make sure it's smooth sailing for them?
I would say take a serious break between looking at things and drawing. Everyone can do like as much, you can be as inspired as you like by other people's stuff. But I think we get so afraid of screwing up that we will end up keeping something in front of us and copying the poses. There are places in this book where, I read dozens of superhero books, and some I read, some I just flicked through and looked at the art before I started this because I hadn't read superhero stuff for so long. And then looking back through, I took like weeks away from them, but had them in my head, was always thinking about it. And looking back through the book now, there are like 6 places that I'm hoping no one else notices where I'm like, oh, I've just memorized someone else's pose. Like I know, and I have a very good memory, so maybe this isn't going to be a problem for other people. But like, take that break, because putting things in your own style is like what will define you and will make your work not look tortured.
No, absolutely. So this has been an awesome show. Thank you so much for sending me this to read. I thought it was fantastic, man. And I can't wait to get you on in August for your next book. Can you tell everyone what's coming out next?
Yes, Ex-Wives of Frankenstein. I'll be launching the Kickstarter late August for that. It is about Elizabeth Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein on the day they find out that their husbands have been found alive in the Arctic Circle living as a couple.
That is awesome, and then we can't wait to dive into it. But with that being said, guys, there's going to be a link in chat. Be sure to check it out so you can buy 4-Color Heroes and check it out today. It is an awesome read. With that being said, it's time for us to wrap up. I hope you all have an awesome new comic book day, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.